Welcome everybody to Wild Medicine for Recovery. This is episode 2, and I'm here with a magical human being that I'm only just beginning to get to know and have already developed a great deal of admiration and gratitude for. Uh, Steve Hounsome. And Steve is an author and maybe a tarot expert. He and his wife Amy have the website tarottherapy.co.uk. And I think, Steve, you were just telling me that you have like 12 or so books that you've written.
Yes, I think it's 12. The last one just came out in start of January. I put it out. So yeah.
And share with us the title. I think you said it was well,
It's
just go
the
ahead.
tarot therapy workbook. So tarot therapy is my thing. It's what I call the way I use tarot. So it's a catchy title, basically. But it's working with the tarot in a therapeutic and developmental way rather than future prediction and stuff like that, which is okay, but it's not my thing.
I
So I'm
love
using
that.
it to help people. Yeah.
I love that, and I have heard you mention it before, and of course I've looked at it, but I have so many
Mm.
questions for you about it.
Mhm.
That and the way that you and I are connected is through OBOD, the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids,
Yeah.
which is something you've been doing since the 90s.
Oh, yes, it was early 90s, I think I joined, yeah, and undertook the whole of the training program, the Bards, Ovates, and Druids bit. There are three grades there, the Bard, then the Ovate, then the Druid. And I went through all of those grades in, I think I was about 12 years to complete them all. There's no set time limit that you have to do them in. It's a year each as a kind of minimum, really, to work through them. But a lot of people take longer, and I took 12 years. I know people that have taken a lot longer than that.
Well, having gone through Bard and I'm in the ending of Ovate
Right.
grade,
Yeah.
um, completed primarily the Ovate
Okay.
grade.
Well done.
In the last 3 years, and certainly I didn't start that journey early in my life. I did a lot of other
Mm,
things that led me to it, which really has blessed everything that I've done and made
it
things
does.
clearer about
Mm,
what's sincere and genuine for me on the path of life, of
mm.
spiritual beingness, the richness of life.
Yep.
Um, so, there's more to come for me. I didn't come to OBOD looking for anything, as I was sharing with you earlier. I didn't come to
Mm.
it seeking. I actually stumbled on OBOD because I was doing research for a Dungeons and Dragons for Recovery group.
Yeah. Right.
And
Excellent.
I
Excellent.
was looking up the Bard character, and
Mm.
OBOD came up, and I'm like, and I really love ancestry, and I have my mother's side is comes out
Yeah.
of Wiltshire and
Oh, right.
Avebury
Perfect. Yeah.
there.
Excellent.
So, and I haven't been there. I've been to the UK, but I have not been to that area, and I will. I will.
Do let me know when you do. We're not far away where we are.
Oh,
I'm in
fantastic.
Dorset, which is kind of adjacent, more or less, to Wiltshire. And of course, you've got Stonehenge and Avebury and all these magical places in Wiltshire.
Well, I will let you know when I get over there.
Absolutely.
It's coming soon.
Absolutely.
I can feel it.
Mm,
Um, but anyway, it's just brought so much beauty into my life, including, as I was sharing earlier, the people like yourself,
mm.
Philip Carr Gomm, who is the previous chosen chief, the new
Yep.
chief, chosen chief, Burke.
Yep.
Am I pronouncing her name
That's
correctly?
it. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good.
I mean, the beautiful open invitation, the
Mm.
non-pretentiousness, the joy that folks in OBOD share is just and the
They're a wonderful
creativity.
bunch of people. Yeah, if you do ever get to try and time your visit to when the summer gathering is on in street now rather than Glastonbury because we outgrew Glastonbury. The town hall couldn't cope. We couldn't get enough people in. So it's a theatre in street, which is, the next town. It's very close, about a mile away. And then you'll get to meet a few hundred of them.
Yeah.
See how
Yeah,
wonderful it
I
really is.
what I understand, Steve, that and we're going to get to the tarot therapy stuff really soon, but
Ah, sure, it's fine.
OBOD is the Druidry. I really want you to speak into that a little bit and just
Mm,
briefly. What I understand is like when I came in of 3 years ago, it was like
yeah.
OBOD was going through a big surge of a lot of interest. Is that right?
Yes. Well, when the lockdown and the pandemic happened, people started enrolling on courses, and it was massive. We suddenly got inundated. I think now there are about 35,000, maybe more than that, members worldwide, but it just keeps growing. And it really is worldwide, from all sorts of places that we're reaching, from Japan. Obviously, we get Australia, America, like yourself, and founded here, but all over the place, lots in Europe as well. But we're touching South America and places now, which is amazing. Um, but it's something that's evolved over a long period of time, really. And when Philip's rewritten the courses as well to bring them more up to date, make them more applicable to modern times, if you like. I think one of the main things for me about OBOD's approach to Druidry, because there are different ones, is that it allows you, or allowed me anyway, to find what was sacred to me. And whether that's a particular approach, you can, there are people in OBOD who are Christians, there are Buddhists, there are Jews, all sorts, doesn't matter, or just the more straight pagan, whatever. Um, but whatever that is, whatever way it's expressed, it doesn't say you must do this and you have to believe that or whatever. It's left for what is right for you. And I have particular practices that I follow mostly daily. Um, and then the festivals through the year as the marker points, solstices and equinoxes and so forth, the Beltane and all of that at the start of May. But you're left to your own devices. Nobody's beating you with a stick saying you should do this, you've got to do that.
Nobody's beating you with a stick, and even going through the coursework, there's always this, it's spoken, and also the energetic is this is an invitation if you should wish to explore this.
Yes.
You might like to. And there's no judgment or this is the way to do it. And I have never come
Mm.
across that anywhere in all of the
No,
things I've done.
yeah, there's no, I mean, there are grades, but it's not like passing an exam. There's an invitation to do a review at the end of each grade, but it's not an exam you must pass. It's more like a celebration, really. And people do it in all kinds of ways and different levels of what they've done, how it's affected them, what you've experienced, and it's telling that tale and celebrating it. And it's done in all kinds of different ways. So, all of which are good.
Do you know, Steve, I'm gonna ask because I've heard Dave the Bard or Dom the
Mm,
Bard talk about kind of his journey through the grades a bit
mm,
and where he feels he landed. And I've heard Emer's talk about the same thing. And
yeah,
it's like in the world we think I'm gonna go through these and then I'm gonna be this thing.
yeah,
Versus, what's most natural for me is this bardic this is the way it expresses itself through me or
mm,
uh as a storyteller or as a musician or as a healer or as a tarot therapist.
yeah.
Um,
Mm,
for example, and that everyone gets to have their own unique flavor. Um, I obviously have not gone through Druid grade yet.
mm,
Haven't even started it yet. Um, and every step of the way, I've thought, I'm just going to let spirit guide me. I'm just going to let my nervous system inform me whether I
yeah,
continue or not.
yeah,
And the beauty of the inspiration, the awen coming forth, and
mm,
like it just becomes really clear. One day it's not clear, and the next day it's so clear. This is This
mm.
is what's pulling me forward. But I wonder on your journey, what particularly, because we say Druidry to cover like all of it, right?
It's a big term, yeah. Mm,
And it can, and I've seen other groups as well, and they have different
yeah.
ways of defining and approaching it. But what
Mm,
is I wanna get to like tying it in with tarot therapy. Um,
okay.
and I wonder what Druidry, if you were to just define it for someone, and I know that I know you can't
Yeah.
really. Um, what is Druidry for someone who's, what has it been for you? I was going to ask,
Mm,
how does tarot tie in for you and Amy? And I'm like, I can't even ask him that because it's you and Amy have different
yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. She's not a member of OBOD. She hasn't followed, her path is more spiritualist, I guess. But there's so many areas that overlap. Her path, she does a lot of mediumship and things like that as well, and healing. So there's lots of crossover areas.
Uh-huh.
Um, I do remember back in the day, going back to the 90s, there used to be a different Druid order. There still is this order, the British Druid Order,
Mhm.
and they used to hold open rituals at the different festivals, the seasonal festivals and so on, usually at Avebury, the Stone Circle there. And we trundle along and turn up to those, and you have all these curious people, and all of these people very strangely dressed, doing and chanting and all of this. And I remember in Emma Restalor, who was one of the leaders of the British Druid Order at the time, doing a talk, and she was saying that somebody had asked her to define what Druidry is, for her and in general. And she said, well, the problem with that is that if I put a definition onto it, it's limiting it. And Druidry really is unlimited. And I've always remembered that because I thought that's good. Um, but for me, it just allowed me to discover what was sacred to me. It brought sense. I'd read quite a lot before into different approaches to spirituality. And it was more about earth-based stuff that was pulling me and spoke to me in my heart. And everything that I discovered just seemed to make sense within everything that OBOD approached and called Druidry. I thought, yeah, that makes sense. So it's earth-based, but it's also including star law as well, and the sun and the moon and all of that. I've always felt very influenced by the moon and lunar tides and influences. Um, so those threads are there through the tarot as well, in particular cards and so on. And my way of working, when you get to the Druid grade, and I'm not giving anything away because that's something that you don't do. You wait till you get there, but there's a lot to do with a path of service that Druids historically were there, as well as lawmakers and midwives and all sorts. They were also there as service, and it's how can you serve? And for me, that's about how can you best be you. And at that point, I'd been a professional tarot reader for quite a while anyway. I was like, okay, well, this is what I do. So it became more the tarot therapy thing took over more, or I let it take over, I suppose. So it all blended in that way. I don't know how much that has actually answered your question.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful blending in, and um I know I'm just going to say this for anybody who's watching at what in any times in space where someone's maybe watching this. Go
Mm,
look up OBOD, go look up Druidry, and it's difficult when our training has been to put things in a box and then to
mm,
try to line up with that box and become whatever that thing is when you're presented with something it's spacious and
mm,
is a container that encourages you to be what you are and to let come
mm.
forward what is there. And one of the things that really, really spoke to me in the very beginning was the definition of druid. Could the breakdown of the word? Could
Well, yeah, again, there's disputes over that. Some people say it's men of the oak or men of the trees. Some people say that it's from a root meaning door. There are all sorts. So it depends on who you look at.
Well,
Um,
what's in the literature is something about wild and as you know, wild medicine recovery is the name of what I'm
Mm,
doing. And that word wild, not to behave. It's not about the outside. You may dance around wildly and
mm.
on energy, and that's wonderful.
Oh, we can do that.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
That's
But
been known.
for me to come to that purest part of myself that is just naturally, authentically, genuinely, whatever that is, and kind of like unearth that, give it
Mm,
a safe place to come out, is what I saw Druidry as. And that's kind of what I hear you saying, whatever.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
It's where I felt that I could be me, my true, authentic spiritual self. Um, Found a home in OBOD's approach, or in Druidry in general. I mean, I'd always kind of viewed myself as a pagan, and again, the term pagan is country dweller is what it really means. And I live in a town, but there's that yearning almost in a spirit, that connection to nature, which can bring out that wild part of us, if you like, which of course I think gets neglected a lot now because most of us are urban. Um, but
Absolutely.
yet you can find that druidry, that spirit. I have a small garden, and I can just be in there. When I'm quite an early riser, so I'm up at sort of 5:30 in the morning normally, and it's still dark most of the year. And one of my habits is to look at the sky and just see what's going on and connect with the stars and the moon if she's out and all of this. So you can bring that wild spirit in, you know, very, very easily. I have lots of house plants. This thing's threatening to take over the whole room. It was about a third of its size a few months ago.
It's
It's gone mad.
glorious.
I
No,
know. It's just
she's called my attention to her as you were talking about
I
nature.
know it's just
Oh,
obviously loving it there, but it's just growing at a rate of knots. But this is,
fantastic.
that happens quite a lot. There's above my screen, my computer screen, there's another giant plant, and although you can't see them, there are more, some
Mhm.
behind the blind. So I have a lot of plants. So
I love
again,
that.
you can connect with it that way, and their energy. That's all part of Druidry for me.
Well, thank you for that. And then, to not get too far away from your weave into the tarot, and
Mm.
I want to say, like, I've been playing with tarot for, oh gosh, I didn't
Oh,
know.
some balloons. Where
Oh,
did they come from?
amazing. Who knew?
We'll take them. That's cool.
Wow. I don't even know what I did. Um, but I was thinking about the stars, Steve, and I was
Yeah.
thinking about the moon, and I was thinking about all of these forces of nature and
Mm.
what they represent within our human experience, the
Yeah.
archetype, the mythology, and how that translates for us. And so tarot has been that for me, as I've explored
Excellent.
the archetypes of tarot.
Yeah.
Um, it's very different to come into a really clear relationship with the air, the wind, the stars, etc.
Mhm.
But to be pointing to these archetypes that play out in a person's life to
Mm.
assist them in healing and growth, which is what I think
Absolutely.
of when I think of therapy. I
Yeah.
just wonder if you could just speak more into like how has that played out for you, and
Mm.
how has that played out in all the work you've done with all of your wonderful patients, your clients, your
Bless you. Thank you.
yeah.
Yes, clients. I try not to use the term patients because it's a bit, medical and clients.
I was sort of making a joke, but it's kind of
People, I
expressed
know,
to do
yeah.
that. So
It's
yeah,
a
yes,
valid
your
point as
clients.
well. Yeah. So, well, I mean, this was the where you talked about the elements a bit there. That's something, as you know, you'll find in the Bardic grade when we go into that in the OBOD courses. One of the things you learn is the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And there's the fifth element of spirit as well. And you learn how to orient yourself around those, how to cast a circle using those if you are into that. And with my pre-existing knowledge of tarot, as I was sort of learning more magically about those through the OBOD course, I thought, well, okay, I can easily weave this in. I get all this because those elements are within the tarot. So you have a suit, say Pentacles relates to the element of earth. And for me, with the way that I work with tarot, it's about the energy of the cards. I'm always saying, my big thing is they don't mean anything. Everybody's always, what does this card mean? My response is, I've got no idea. What do you think it means? And we have a dialogue about it. And obviously, with the knowledge I've got of the symbolism, the numerical energy, the element of it, and all of that, we can hopefully uncover what it's representing, what it might be communicating for my client. So you've got the four elements in four suits, and then the combination of those four, you get the fifth element of the major arcana. So, which is where you get death and the devil and the fall and all of that. And that's like the whole person. So each of those elemental levels, say Pentacles with Earth, is the physical level. So the Pentacles cards, when they come out in a reading, will tell you what may be happening physically, not, oh, you've got a sprained ankle or something. I mean, you might have, but about what's maybe needing, what actions you might be needing to take. How do you need to demonstrate the other levels? It's all about the holistic approach to the whole back. So the cups cards relating through the element of water are to do with the feelings and the emotions that are affecting you and how you either are or may need to respond to those. I'm often taking the approach of what need is the card highlighting for you. So then you've got swords cards, which the element of air tell you about what's happening in the mind, what's happening mentally for you. And then wands is what's happening on a spiritual level, which is more your instinct and inspiration, the creative spark, what's driving you, motivations, or fire, element of fire. And then the major cards are what's happening for you overall as a whole. So depending on what cards come out, that's how I can relate to them. So it immediately related to the world I was discovering when I started studying Druidry anyway, through those four elements, or five elements, really.
That
So
is
a
so
bit more
exciting.
I'd
And I
describe.
feel like if people want to learn the tarot, and I've been working with it, I'm naturally can just read energy and I don't need
Cool.
cards. Many
Yeah,
people don't necessarily, but
yeah.
but some people wanted them. Like they
Mm.
wanted to have this
They can
visual.
give you a good focus and framework for it.
So it was very handy for me to pick it up and learn it.
Yes, cool.
And I have one deck that kept coming to me and I didn't want anything to do with it, and that was the Rider Waite deck. And
Yeah.
I feel like something in my subconscious, maybe it was past lives, maybe it was witch burning,
Hmm.
I don't know, was
Yeah.
like, do not touch this. Um,
Mm.
and yet it kept coming to me, and I finally surrendered myself to give myself into it and
Yeah.
and have a relationship with it and turn
Right.
towards the resistance.
Yes.
I now I have it, but I now work with a medicine person deck if I do work with it.
Cool.
But um but and I want to know what deck you use or decks you use, and if I can't, I don't even know, maybe you created your own deck, but
I have
uh
two, in
I,
fact.
you what?
Two, in fact.
Two. Okay, good. So
Yeah.
we'll make sure you mention that. But
That's
this
fine.
but this way of, I'm a big, when I teach people things, which is my favorite,
Yes.
um, to empower people, teach them how to do the things and
Mm.
come into relationship, whether it's the plants or
Yes.
tools or the elements, whatever. This is brilliant.
Mm.
Thinking about introducing people to the elements and their
Yeah.
relationship to the elements inside of them and in their life through tarot.
Yeah.
That's what you just gave
Well,
me.
it's what we are. I've always said, we are a living, breathing, moving tarot deck. That's kind of how I see people. I think in terms of tarot the whole time, Amy and I will do this. Yeah. How are you today? Oh, I'm a bit four of swords today. Oh, and we know, this is what happens in our house. Not occasionally we're watching something on TV, it'll be like, oh, that's six of swords, isn't it?
That's awesome.
That's just how we communicate.
Because you can go. I mean, I had someone recently say to me, Rodasi, I'm in a tarot card moment in my life. I think you can
Mm,
probably understand that. And I was like, I totally understand that. I know exactly what's
yeah.
going on for you. So how
Mm.
cool that this is part of the communication in your home. Like this is what I'm seeing
It's
mirrored
just
back.
natural. Yeah, yeah. And when we're watching, a TV or maybe talking about celeb or whatever, politician or whatever it might be, well, they're kind of being a king of wands, aren't they?
That's fantastic.
Well, it's kind of my way of expressing because I know what I mean that way. And fortunately, I'm lucky that Amy's clever and gets it.
Yeah, she can keep up with you. She knows
Absolutely.
the lingo.
Oh, she can better me at times, that's for sure. So,
That's
but
wonderful.
it's because, like I say, we are a person. So tarot is so good because in my new book, I did a little dedication and as to our new 1-year-old granddaughter, Evie. It's just stunning,
Oh,
brilliantly funny.
okay.
And I sort of thank you to Amy, and I said thank you for putting up with me and 78 of my best friends because it's a tarot deck, 78 cards, because that's what they are, because they know me better than I know myself. They can be objective and honest and truthful, but they're able to give you a hug and help you at the same time.
Wow, what a beautiful way to look at the utilization of the tarot as a tool
Mm, yeah,
and how frequently we can get in our head and get in our own way and not see clearly.
yeah,
You spoke into how you don't really utilize the tarot as divination, but as therapy.
no.
Can you just speak
Mm,
into clarifying what what each of those
mhm.
means to you and what how you just make the distinction?
Well, when I say I'm not into divination, I mean, in a way I am, because that term itself, divination, to me implies you're connecting with the divine. And as soon as I pick up a tarot deck, that's what I'm doing, because we, of course, have that within us, that spark of the divine, if you like. And it's broken down as human beings into those different levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, and then our whole being. That's the construction of a tarot deck. So, broken down into 78 pieces. That's essentially the theory for me behind tarot. And it's the energy, and that energy creates our reality. So when we tap into the energy of the cards, the energy of the tarot, we're looking at them, or I look at them as causal to our reality. So we're getting under the skin, we're getting into the creative power of it, so we can look into it and not determine what they mean, but sense into them what need it might be highlighting for us, what message they might be giving us, what they're showing us, and what we may need to do in response to that so that we create our own reality. So that's how it's therapeutic. It's empowering the client, the individual, whoever, whether we're reading for ourselves. And you've got to be honest if you're going to do that, because they will be, believe me, they do not hold back. um, or we're reading for somebody else. So it's a connection with the divine, but it's not telling you what's going to happen. Because I just realized as I was talking there, I totally forgot what you asked me. And it was, I do this, the orientates
I
like
can
that. You
relate.
just get on a roll, don't you? So I just found myself getting back to your question was about the divination and the therapeutic side. So it's divination in the sense of connecting to the divine, but it's not telling anybody what's going to happen, because it's empowering them to create their own reality and they determine what's going to happen.
Do you know, that's really powerful. I hear
Mm,
you a word you did not use, but it's one that came up recently and it seems very, very important in terms of having a fulfilling life, and that is
mm,
responsibility. And if I'm
yeah.
giving if I believe that I don't already have that connection, it's
Mm,
easy, or have to go to somebody else or something else to get it.
yeah.
which many of us have that conditioning,
Mm.
like I'm separate from it somehow. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I just heard you, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but what I heard you say is it's not taking that approach to divination or anything else, whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it. It's
Yeah,
taking the approach of this responsibility to recognize, or to attune to the reality that we aren't separate from the divine. And this is a tool to
absolutely.
help me see what is going on that is unseen to me.
Yes, and self-empowerment in the now so that you become the creator of and create the reality that you want, the future that you want. So my work's very much focused on the now, although it will look into past stuff
Mhm.
sometimes if that comes up, but not into future in the sense of predicting it, but more in the sense of this is what can happen if we follow this path. It can be getting you to what you want. Sometimes if we look into future stuff, it's quite a recognized therapeutic technique. I call it stepping stones, where you look at the outcome that you want, visualize that, and then work out stepping stones back to where you are now. So then you've got a path to follow forward, and each card in a reading can be a bit like that. Mm.
Yes, this is fantastic. I've studied coaching and I'm still a student of coaching as like a
Yeah,
life coach, spiritual coach, recovery coach.
excellent.
Um, and that's just brilliant. It's so beautiful. That's exactly it. Like, what is the outcome you're looking for? Has what you've been doing, you haven't taken responsibility for this thing, or you have unconsciously not noticed, or
Mm,
this formula you've been following is leading to this outcome.
yeah,
You want this outcome. What might we do to get in that direction?
and that's the key. Might they're not fixed outcomes, And it's like a lot of people will say, "Oh, tarot reader, I don't have readings because I wouldn't want to hear anything bad that's going to happen to me." Well, you make it happen yourself, But let's find ways where you can get what you do want to happen, you know.
I think this is one of the number one things that people have such a hard time with when they come to someone for some form of therapy or divination. Like they want you to tell
Mm,
them what to do,
yeah,
definitive, this is what's going on, this is what you got to do, and I promise
yeah.
this is what's going to happen if you do that.
I am not going to. I don't want that responsibility. I've got enough to do with
No,
you.
and
I want yours as
none
well.
of us,
You know what I
none of
mean?
us can take that. None of us can actually
Yeah.
offer that.
No, 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 that's not good. But people do that. Tarot comes with, unfortunately, so many kind of caveats and expectations that people have. Um, and all the publicity and a lot of what's written about it and the expectations people have. And it's a shame because it pigeonholes it and limits it. And I get a lot of that, even when I do what I call the tarot therapy speech, which is essentially the bones of what I've been talking about, how it's not predicting, but it's empowering and all of this. And then people will say, yes, yeah, that's great. That's what I want. Okay, so is there a subject in your life, you want to look at? You say, yes, can you tell me when I'm going to meet my next boyfriend? Okay, so you haven't listened so well. No,
Totally missed the point.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, but let's explore that issue of relationships for you.
Mhm.
Why do you
Mhm.
feel you need somebody else straight away?
Do you know
So,
when I was doing readings for people regularly paid,
mm,
I quit at one point because I was so
mm,
exhausted by those questions.
yeah,
And I did some work on myself and I started
mm,
to attract a different type of client. Not that that
mm.
doesn't ever happen now,
No, but
but primarily I don't really do readings anymore, and I just do coaching,
mm,
and that satisfied me a great deal more because I take the approach more of what you've just shared. I'm here
yeah.
to empower you.
Well, I mean, I call them readings because it was hard not to. I don't really see them as readings as such. That's how I refer to them because it's the generic term and what people expect. But it's a consultation, is a better term because it's not me reading the tarot and telling you. It's okay, we've got these cards here, let's explore them together, And I can't tell any client what they mean because they're for them, they're not for me. So I can explain and explore the card, and but it's nearly always done by Zoom now, and I have a separate webcam so I can just put the picture of the card up and they can look at it, so it works that way. And I'll say, okay, well, what maybe particular questions, what's the first thing you see in this card? How does this card feel to you when you look at it? And so we will back that around, and I can bring in the tarot knowledge, you know, and relate stuff about it, but not in such a way where it tells them what it's going to be for them. We arrive at that together, and I can say, okay, I'm sensing this for you. How do you understand that? Do you relate to that? Does that make sense, or is it nonsense? And it's an open-ended process. I don't know what's going to happen at all. Well, actually, that's not always true, because once I've tuned in beforehand, I often have a fairly good sense of what's going on, which usually comes out in the cards. But I don't know what I'm going to say until I've said it.
Uh-huh. Which is really, really honest and
Yeah,
being present and being attuned to, oh, there's different ways we can say it, like being very present and surrendered to allow for life to move through us authentically
yeah,
and effectively. Um,
yes, yeah, yeah. It's like, the expectation of a reader or somebody being able to cure you or sort your ills, do it for you. I can't do that. What I can do, I always say, it's helping you to help yourself.
mhm,
In that way, I can hold your hand and lead you to the gate, but I can't push you through.
mhm, mhm. This is so powerful, so, 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 so powerful. So anybody watching who is interested in a consultation with Steve, tarottherapy.co.uk, right, is where they would
Yep,
go
that's
to
it. Yeah, yeah.
sign up
Just have a
for.
look. That's the website. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
There are courses as well if you have a mind to want to
Marvelous.
plunge into learning, but they're geared towards creating professional level of reading, so they're quite big. But
Awesome.
there's
Well,
different
I
levels.
think that there are a lot of people out there who are professing or doing readings for folks and they haven't
Mm,
had any kind of formal training and
yeah,
maybe you don't need it. I didn't have it,
don't have
um
to.
but to find confidence and to find the kind of quality or perspective and to come from
Mm,
that place that you're talking about, it's been
yeah.
important for me to have good mentorship in my life.
Well, that's kind of again what I do when I'm people that doing the courses. It's basically through the certificate level course, which is kind of the main one where it all happens. Um, you dissect every card. You literally break it down to individual symbols, and you determine what they represent to you. There's not. I mean, there are the tarot therapy books. There's three, well, four volumes of it now, but three that are mainly the textbooks for the course. But they don't tell you what the cards mean. There's all sorts of other information in there.
Wow.
But the
Can't
course
even
is just so you
imagine.
work it out yourself, come to your own knowledge and understanding, and I mentor you through that process. The tarot for me is the ultimate mentor. I'm glad you
And
mentioned it.
every expert that I know or have spoken to, and hopefully even this is how I would express it, that
Yeah.
is always the truth. Whatever the modality, whatever the medium, whatever the
Mm.
thing, that it itself is the teacher, is the mentor, is the
Yeah.
healer, whatever you
Yeah.
want to say.
But also, I think it would be good to say that you can work with the tarot with no knowledge of it. You don't have to learn. Maybe it's good to know the basic of the suits, what each of the suits are, and the basic energy of each number, if you like, and a little bit of the core meaning of the major arcana cards. Most books on tarot will give you that. Mine do. I give you that bit. um, but you can just sit and work with the card. One of the courses you mentioned, Philip Carr Gomm earlier, the ex now chosen chief. He and I did a course. Well, we did two courses, but the main one we did was called Transformation Through Tarot, and that's a sort of 9 lesson course. It's not massive, where with or without tarot knowledge, you can work with it for your own personal transformation, and it's immediately empowering. You need a tarot deck. But that's about all you need, an open heart. And that will carry you through a whole process of self-discovery and self-empowerment. And along the way, you'll get a lot of really good knowledge about tarot as well. But it's experiential. There's meditations in it and stuff that you can do, and all sorts of different exercises. Um, and you can communicate with us, well, with me mainly, as well on the website. That's on the artoflivingwell.org, I think it is, or .org.uk. Let me just check that while we're talking. I'm going to open the web page. Um, so
Yeah,
I'll get the
and I'll
address
get
right.
that down and I'll put some of this into the text wherever I share this
Yeah, so
wonderful
oh, just
information.
artoflivingwell.org.uk. No the in it.
Okay.
And you'll see lots of Philip's juicy courses, but there's our two tarot ones in there as well. But
Mm.
transformation through tarot has been hugely popular. People love it. They seem to get a lot out of it, which is grand.
So we've mentioned Philip a few times. I feel like we should just, I don't I have emailed with Philip just a little bit. I've watched lots of his talks and the Tea
Yeah,
with the Druid, and
yeah,
yeah, I know you have a personal relationship with Philip. I
yeah.
love him. I feel
Oh,
like I already
he's
know him.
great. Yeah, he's absolutely
Um, but if you could just share, your relationship with the previous chosen chief of OBOD,
well,
um,
yeah, yeah.
and how you two came to put this transformation through tarot together.
Well, yeah. I mean, it came about when I finished doing the OBOD courses, and I'd completed Druid, and you get a beautiful certificate when you do. Proper hand scrolled gold leaf and all of that. It's gorgeous. And I became a mentor. One of the things that you have an option for is somebody to mentor you through that you can communicate with, by email usually. Who again isn't going to teach you and tell you what to do, but will there as a is there as a sort of sounding board guide and all of that. And I did that for I think it was about 12 years, something like that. And then there's a mentor coordinator um, phoned me one day and asked if I would help and do some administration for her and all this, which I did. And then a few years later, she phoned me and said, "Oh, I've got a question for you, but you probably know what I'm going to ask. Is it's, I'm going to retire. Do you want to take over?" I didn't see that coming at all. I said, "No, did not know." And so, in the course of doing that official role in OBOD, I got to know Philip because he was still chief at the time. And then he lives, I think it's about a 3 hour drive away along the south coast from Dorset, where I am. I'm in a beautiful place called Poole. It's Poole Harbour, which is the second biggest natural harbour in the world, next to Sydney in Australia, and it's beautiful.
Oh.
Um, and he came down for some reason, and I can't remember what. Oh, that's right. He was doing some talks and some meditation teaching here, and he phoned up and said, would you mind if I came down and we'll go and have dinner, and if I stayed over for the night? Yeah, of course you can. And so we did that, and it was when we went out for this. He timed it well. It was Amy's birthday, I think. So we went out to dinner to do that. Came back, and the conversation got to tarot, as it often does in our house. And I was outlining a bit more about these ideas I had and all of that, how what I was kicking around my head at the time. And then a day after he had gone home, he phoned and said, "Oh, I was thinking about what you were saying about tarot, but would you like to do a course?" I said, "It's funny you should say that because I've got one." And I thought that I didn't know what to do with it. I had the bones of this course written out. And I thought, I don't know how to do it. How am I going to get this out there? And Philip's got the structure and all of that set up. So it had that beautiful synchronicity in place. So we got together and you'll see little videos and there's a conversation that we did in there as well. That's all in the course that you can see of just talking about tarot and all of
Mm.
that. So it kind of came in a sort of magical way like that as well, which is really nice. And
Wow.
funnily enough, I spoke to him, and nobody else in the universe apart from Philip and I know this, and everybody who's seeing this will now know. But we're talking about doing another one as well,
Oh, so exciting.
which
So
is literally
exciting.
brand new. That's a brand new
Y-
idea.
y- I just want to share with the folks watching, Philip's your energy is really beautiful, Steve, and we're gonna
Thank you.
get just quickly. I want, well, maybe not quickly. We'll see. I have something deep that I want to
Mm.
address in a moment, but
Yes.
I just want everyone to know watched Philip. Philip's energy is beautiful as well, and the two of you conversating together back and forth, which I got to see in our platform when he interviewed you not long ago,
Yeah.
was part of the inspiration for me to want to talk to you more and see if we could do
Mm.
this and put out
Mm.
there your approach to tarot therapy. You didn't speak about it at all, and I wanted to know about it. But what
Right.
you
Yeah.
did speak about was was grief and
Mm.
ch deep challenges in the body and death and
Yes.
uh meeting realities that are difficult with your
Yes.
practices. Those are
Yes.
the things I remember from that conversation
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Well, that came about because one of the things within OBOD set up are these talks, interviews, whatever, much like you and I have been doing, that Philip's done with a few people. And he obviously knew the things that have been happening in my life more personally, the big things anyway, over the last 4 years, really now, nearly. Um, which were sort of pretty big and dramatic and life-changing. And he said, look, how do you feel about talking about them and all of that? And I'm a pretty open book, really, and I have no problem with that. So it was around that. And, and though I didn't talk about tarot, it played a massive part in it. Um, the basic things were that, yes, as I say, it will be 4 years from diagnosis, 4 years in April or May time. Um, yeah, 4 years in April or May this year that Amy was diagnosed with stage 4, inverted commas, terminal lung cancer, um, and was given about a year to live, but she's still here. And we actually went to the hospital today and saw her oncologist, and her last scans are clear, so we are extremely happy, as they
Mhm.
have been now for about 2.5 years, which is fantastic. She went through a massive load of treatment and all of that. So that's all good. And then 3 years ago this week, our darling daughter Laura died. Very suddenly, she was 32. And I won't go into the details of it, but just total accidental sudden death, which is, you know, one of the worst things you can possibly imagine. Um, and she was stunningly beautiful, but that led to a lot of grief work. You know, for me, there was lots of grief work, preparatory grief, as it's called, or anticipatory grief, originally with Amy. And then to make it a little triad, things happen in threes. Amazingly enough, 2 years ago in when was I diagnosed? I think it was May, something like that. I can't remember. 2 years ago, in a couple of months' time or so, I was actually diagnosed with not. I can't let Amy hog the limelight. You see, I got diagnosed with stage 4, supposedly terminal. I call it incurable cancer as well. A different kind of cancer. Mine's of the endocrine system, mainly on my liver and pancreas. Um, Originally, I thought it was going to be pancreatic cancer, which is not good. And I was assigned to palliative care and expected to be dying within a few months. I had a palliative care nurse come and see me here. I was in not good shape at all. I really was not well. And the first word she said to me was, "How do you feel about dying?" Um, in order to avoid you getting an X-rated certificate, I won't tell you my reply. But I didn't think it was a very good way to start a conversation. We only saw her the once. I was given somebody else. But I responded well to the just over a year's worth of chemo that I had. I still get not chemo, but I get a monthly injection, um, which helps keep everything suppressed. And I'm doing good. I'm feeling well. I have my own healing regime of shamanic healing and supplements and yoga and exercise and all sorts, lots of meditation as well. And tarot. I mentioned earlier about tarot as the ultimate mentor. When Laura died, Um, Obviously, my initial shock and trauma and all of that. But once things calmed a little bit, I turned to tarot. It's what I do. I thought, it's got to be, I need what, yeah, what do I do? And I kind of went to the tarot basically like that. I actually sat on this floor just behind me here with a tarot deck and spread it out. And just, it was just that. What do I do? I need help. I can't. What do I do? And I just picked one card literally and I journaled it, typed it up in a Word document. Um, and I kept going. I tend to have, I've got three, which is probably why you've seen me looking here. I keep eyeing the cards that are up there. I mentioned the Six of Swords, which is what's staring at me, and I have my tarot mentor cards stare at me. I spend a lot of time in front of the computer, and so they stare at me. And when the energy of that card seemed to shift or move, I picked another one and I kept going. And I thought, well, there's got to be somebody must have written about how do you use tarot for grief. I need some. I couldn't find anything, so I thought, sod it, I'll write it myself. So I wrote a book called Tarot for Grief, dedicated to Laura. Money goes to a Mind mental health charity here because she had some mental health issues. Um, and That was the process. I've totally forgotten again what you asked me.
Well, Steve,
It's a
I
pretty
mean,
ridiculous story,
it's,
really.
it's very powerful, a demonstration of your spirit, of how you've allowed your passion to carry you. I know
Mm.
that there are many people who can relate to being in something and just there they are on the
Yeah,
floor,
you just want
going to the cards
to,
and
yeah,
saying,
it's that
or
point
whatever
of,
their thing is, whatever their
yeah,
thing
yeah,
may be.
whatever it is. Yeah.
Um, I can also relate to, I've learned the runes, and
Mm. Mm.
that's from my Scandinavian ancestry, my Norwegian ancestors.
Excellent.
I didn't want anything to do with it. I wasn't interested in it. Same thing with the tarot cards, but it just
Mm. Mm.
coming and coming. Finally, I made my
They'll
own,
get
and
you in the end.
yeah, I started to. Oh, I've taken a very long time just drinking it in and letting them
Yeah.
teach me. So I related to that part of it, but
Mm.
my heart and my eyes started watering and just
Mm.
imagining I have a 19-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old daughter, and the
Mm.
a sudden loss of either of them. When I heard you share this the first time, that was
Mm.
feeling for you, and then all of a sudden my attention went to like putting myself actually in your shoes,
Mm.
in my own world. And having gone through grief, having lost a couple of very close people to me,
Mm.
and stayed as present as possible while allowing myself whatever
Mm.
was there for me. So I related to your story the first time. And
Well, this is the thing. It's, death is actually the one certainty. They say, I think I said this in the book, they say that there's two certainties in life, taxes and death. So, some people get away without paying tax, but a death, no, that's going to happen to all of us. Um, and it does change you when you have something as awful as a child dying, or in case of our other daughter, Kate, her sibling, and these two were really close. They still are, Laura's still about, but
mm,
um, you know, you and then your own death, comes looming pretty fast and right in front of your face. You have to look at it. Um, and so the tarot helps me make sense of it. It helps keeps me on an even keel. And we have our moments. We had both of us in tears this afternoon, in fact. It's evening where I am now. So that happens and we let it happen and we talk and cry and hug and then we carry on, and make a cup of tea. It's what English people do. Tea helps. Tea helps everything.
I've got
Um,
some tea here. It's
yeah,
helping.
absolutely. So I did the Tarot for Grief, and I've just started work on my next book, which is going to be Tarot for Living and Dying. I reread recently the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. Fantastic
Fantastic,
book and brilliant.
fantastic stuff.
I've read a lot about death and dying for obvious reasons, and it kind of helped me. I'm a voracious reader anyway, but again, I related it all to tarot. The Tarot for Grief process looked at the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, and they relate to the four suits and the major arcana. The
Mm,
last one being acceptance, the whole self, the major cards. So I explain that in the book, and the way I can then turn to the cards as my mentor. So I keep doing that, and I've journaled ever since, and I still am.
hmm I love that was the other piece that moved me so deeply, not only the empathy for your loss and for I mean like these moments in our life that last usually years, this
Mm, mm,
happen in threes, if you will, this like
yeah,
really now, I mean, for me, it's a moment where it's like, I mean, this is the unbelievable is happening. And one,
yeah.
now here's another one, here's another one.
Mm.
It's unbelievable. And yet here we are in the middle of it all, and it just
You don't
rocks the
know. Yeah.
foundation.
I mean, when Amy was first diagnosed and going through her chemo and struggling for a while there, and her kind of cancer, there's sort of generally two types of lung cancer: small cell and non-small cell. Small cell is the much faster acting, quicker growing one, which is what Amy has. So, her mum died of it, and her grandma died of it as well. It's not hereditary, apparently. Go figure.
Mm,
But
mm.
yeah, right. But so we were looking at her dying, and at some point I remember saying to her, look, you don't know, we don't know what's going to happen. Still, I know it don't look great, but I can still die before you. You don't know. And now look at us. It's, as she put it,
Miracle. It's
well,
beautiful.
it's amazing. And Amy's being Amy, when I got my diagnosis, said to my oncologist, well, should we get his and hers coffins? But what do you think? Which kind of threw him a bit, but there you go. That's Amy.
I mean, that's been what a fantastic thing to have. Like you said, having looked at your own mortality, it's in your face. You must. And I
Yeah,
have done this not in the same way.
yeah, yeah.
But I have
But
done this, and it changes you to
oh,
come
it does.
to be forced into the adventure of grief, as
Mm,
well as to be forced into coming to terms with your mortality.
yeah.
Um, and then you can't help but have a sense of humor. And maybe Amy had always has had one, but I didn't always have one about those things. I do
Mm.
now. And I appreciate
Well,
her.
it's yeah. I mean, she was a little bit further down the line by that point. She'd lived with it for 2 years. I'd lived with it through her, so it's secondhand, if you like. But yeah, she is like that. And the great thing
Fantastic.
is, yeah, I mean, although it's difficult sometimes, the great thing is obviously we can empathize. And she's had it longer than me and been there. So when I was going through new stuff, she could say, look, it'll be like this, you'll get that. And oh, I get this feeling and all of that. So it's been fantastic. But we can bounce off each other that way, which is
Mm.
wonderful. Um, but it looking at your own death, if you can accept that and blend it, because it will happen to you, you just don't know when and how. Um, but if you can embrace that, face and embrace is one of my favorite sayings. Um, you kind of come alive a little bit more, and people think, oh, you must be rushing around doing all the things you've really wanted to do and all of that. And unless you've got loads of money to do all that stuff, most of us can't. Um, it doesn't actually change your day-to-day life in that sense. You maybe do things a bit more, mindfully, in a way, but it does change the manner in which you live. For me, it made me, I've always tried to be a kind person, but it made me want to do as much good and be loving as far more. I've always wanted and felt like I was that kind of person. What's one of the big things Druidry did for me, but it's more urgent now. It's more important to me. And spirituality has always been important, but now it's more so, not because I'm dying, but because I'm alive. So you become, it's a bit of a cliche, you become that bit more alive, and you do cherish the moments. And a perfect example is we at Christmas, um, it's always a weird time when you've had a loss like that because that's what Christmas Day does, you know. But we have Kate and Bogdan, our beautiful son-in-law, and little Evie for her first Christmas here, Christmas Day. And I cook. I love cooking. So we did dinner and all of that, and then we were sitting around afterwards, and I cleared up because I like to be in control in the kitchen where everything goes. So everyone comes out, do you want some help? No, go away. Can I put this away? No, leave it there. But anyway, then I came in with my cup of tea and sat down, and I was just sort of quietly having a moment of watching everyone, and I just said, "Do you want to come back next week and do it again?" Just
Oh,
because of love of the moment, and we did. We did it New Year's Day as well, and it was beautiful. And so it's moments like that. Normally, I probably wouldn't have said that before, but you get to that point where you just think, yeah, I want to enjoy this moment again. We could do that next week, so we did, and they like my dinners, so that's pretty cool.
I mean, I really appreciate that. And I remember you saying something like that, that
Mm,
before in your interview with Philip that, or your conversation with Philip, that
yeah.
it's just changed the small things for you, but also
Mm,
made you want to live more. And I,
yeah.
what a really great message for people who may not even be facing anything like this.
Mm,
Where can we attune to the preciousness of life, the gift that it is that we get to be here? How can we be more kind? How can we be
yeah.
of service? Um,
Mm. And it's amazing, when there's always that thing of be nice to people because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know people's stories. Um, and I'd like to be kind of open and not sort of rush around telling, hey, hello, I've got stage 4 cancer, you know. Um, but I don't know the way the magnetism or something of these things happen. You do end up in conversations with people who are going through stuff,
mm,
you know,
mm,
and you can kind of help people. But even if it's just a small thing, the thing about random acts of kindness. I love those, where if you're in whatever your cafe of choice is, buy a coffee and leave it there for, the staff to give to somebody they want to give, or that kind of thing. I remember being in our local supermarket, and I wanted to buy a single lemon at that time. So they have all these lemons in bags of half a dozen or something, and there's no single. They usually have single ones. And I lifted up the tray, and there was this woman next to me, kind of looking. I said, "Oh, I only want one lemon," and she said, "Do you know what? I'm the same." So I said, "Oh, look, here you go," and ripped open the bag, gave her a couple of lemons, and I bought the bag and had the rest. And then she said, "Oh, I can't believe it," and suddenly gave me this hug. She was in such a sort of state of shock almost that someone had done a small thing, a bag of lemons. But I went out with a big smile. It was great. So I love random
oh,
acts of kindness
beautiful.
like that. They're so good. I'm not trying to big myself up because that doesn't matter, but
No.
it's the impact those things and the energy. You both get a buzz. And I came
Hmm.
home and told Amy, and she's like, "Oh, that's cool."
It is beautiful. I mean, that's the passing on of I mean, it's infectious when you praise or
Yeah.
when you do so, just that wasn't even that big of a deal for you,
No, not at all. It wasn't
but it
really.
lit
It's
you
a
both
lemon.
up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and it's great, you know. And they have like a food donation collection. I think they do in a lot of big supermarkets and so on now. So I make sure I buy something every week when I do our grocery shop. I buy something and whatever it is goes in there. Again, it's
Mm,
not a big thing, but it makes a difference to somebody somewhere. Got a bag of pasta last week, and that's cool.
fantastic.
So it's those little bits that make a difference, and it doesn't have to be monetary value. You know. A small kind act lifting, I don't know, a pram up a flight of stairs or something if someone's struggling, whatever you're able to do. Those things make a difference. They really do, and I'm passionate about those.
Hmm.
So you kind of wake up a bit more in those kind of ways, and I think in the ways that matter when you make a friend of your death, when you embrace your death.
Hmm. Steve, your book, that you're writing it right now, or it's done, the one of living and dying?
That I've just started. The one I've just put out is the Tarot Therapy Workbook. So there's Tarot Therapy volumes one, two, and three. Volume one was theory and practice of the background stuff. Volume two was I can't remember if it, yeah, the major, and then volume three, the minor, or the other way around. I can't remember.
Mhm.
They were quite a long time ago, and then um, over the last several years, different techniques and practices I've acquired along the way all went into the Tarot Therapy Workbook, and there's a compendium of therapeutic responses that you can have to every card. So that's just come out. They're all on Amazon. And then I um, started background work as I was finishing off the last book on this tarot for living and dying, but I don't know how long that'll take me. But yeah, I'm into doing that.
And is there a separate book that's Tarot for Grief?
There is Tarot for Growth. I will show you. Disappears and grabs the nearest book, which is that's the cover that way
Mm.
around. So that's Tarot for Grief.
Yeah, so anybody who's dealing with or has not dealt with grief,
Yeah.
this may be useful.
Yes. Uh, that I will show you because she's there and it's her anniversary. That's our gorgeous Laura.
Oh, beautiful. Could
Yeah.
blessings on that. I mean, you didn't
Thank
say,
you.
but it was this last week, and you did share with me privately before we
Yeah.
started the recording, uh,
Yes.
having gone to the cemetery and the
Yeah.
experience there.
Yes, we're blessed. It's a beautiful, beautiful place called Harbour View Crematorium. You can Google it, it comes up. Harbour
Mm.
View Crematorium, Paul Dorset or something will find it, and you can see some of the photos. And the building where they do the services there is in the shape of a Celtic long barrow burial chamber. So it's quite amazing, and it's grass covered. It's not like a big, you know, unpleasant brick building or something. And there's a little moat around it. And you can walk. There's lots of little groves of trees that you can hide yourself in and places to sit and a view over the harbour. Um, and there's the small kind of stone circle there. There's some stones planting in the ground and some benches around it. So it's quite small, but it's got an energy. So we went and I had
Mm.
a chat with Laura there, and I sensed that I try and do this without crying, but it might not work. But I kind of said to her, how much I missed her. And she said, Papa, she used to call me Papa, it's a small thing. And I knew that what she meant was the lifespan that we have as human beings and how long it will be till I see her. It's a small amount of time in terms of our immortality and so forth. And she just said, it's Papa, it's a small thing. So there was a real comfort in that. And we mentioned about, I think you mentioned chanting Arwen in Druidry. We have a chant called the Arwen, which is basically means flowing spirit. So I just opened myself up and did some Arwens for her. There you go.
Yeah, my eyes aren't dry. I don't know if
Yeah,
yours are, but mine aren't.
I just got through that.
Yeah, well
I
done.
had to deliberately not look at you too much.
Well done. Uh,
Yeah,
what a powerful thing to kind of, in essence, leave folks on, I think. I don't even know how much I'm not pay I'm
I
totally
don't know.
lost track of
Oh,
time.
we've been going for quite a while. I hope people are still with us. I did warn you before we started once
Yeah,
I did
yeah. Yes,
keep
you
going.
did. You warned me and I knew better and I still didn't. I've just like I kept this way away from me and not even looked.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
I want to I want to just, I'll share all of the pertinent information in the text of wherever we post this.
Mm,
But Steve, I just wanted to thank you for your service in OBOD. I mean, I get to connect with you because of the
mm,
circles in our Hearth membership site.
yeah.
and I see what you do, and I also have had two different mentors, and so I know what
Mm,
mentors kind of do, and I've connected with the coordinators in the past, and
mm,
so I have a very small inkling of the things that you've held space for, as well as your own commitment to your own path and your own
mm.
spiritual journey, as well as uh, everything that you just shared with us.
Thank
And
you. Well, I mean, I'm really lucky because, it's my work kind of thing, but it really is not work. It's I've always said it's way better than working for a living. I'm very, very lucky to be in the position that I'm in, and I really value that. But thank you. When you get to Druid
absolutely.
grade, there's only a couple of mentors, and you mentor yourself much more, but you might end up with me.
Uh, well, how cool
That would
kismet
be
would
great.
be.
That would be good. That
That
would be
would
good.
be super cool. And I will come and I'll let you know when I come to to your
Absolutely. Yes.
area.
You
Hmm.
can come and I'll make you dinner.
Awesome. Yes, that'd be great. Well, anything else that you want to leave folks with, or are you feeling
Oh,
complete?
I don't know. I think the thing through it all, my Amy's diagnosis, Laura's dying, and all the rest of it is that whatever life does throw at us, whatever we encounter and all of that, that there is still something sacred. The world is still a beautiful place. It's, in terrible turmoil in all sorts of ways, I think, at the moment. And everybody's like, oh my God. And there's good reasons for that. And yet, despite all that, there's still peace and there is still love in there. And that's ultimately what matters most. I totally, so passionately and strongly believe that love is the strongest thing in not just this world, but the universe as well. And it's in there within you, underneath whatever else is going on, and to find it, it's pretty easy, because it's in your heart. It's part of what you are. Sit down, be quiet, be still, and breathe, and it's there.
Oh.
And I know it kind of almost sounds a bit trite, really, to say that, but believe me, I've done it with tears rolling down my face and sobbing my heart out and all the rest of it, and it is there.
Mhm.
Give it a bit
Powerful
of time.
message.
It's there.
Powerful
Yeah,
message right now when there are so many things going on.
yeah,
I personally I feel a bit sheltered from some of it, but I know that many people are struggling and suffering, and this message
yeah,
that you just brought about the
mm,
preciousness of life, about it being a short period of time, about love being the key,
yeah,
about these that there are tools available and there are communities and there are
mm,
pathways, there are things that we can do to help us
yes.
be attuned to, get in touch with, and then for ourselves, and then also
Yeah.
share it
And
with
I
one
think that
another.
the simplicity of the essence of it, it's there within your heart. It's there within your center, wherever you feel your center is, or whatever that is. Imagine it as love. Everything else will flow from that.
Hmm. Thanks so much, Steve. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for hosting and asking me, because I love it.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, I'll put the pertinent information for you. Please connect with Steve at tra what I'm losing the
Tarotherapy.co.uk.
thank you. And then also the transformational transformation through tarot
Yep.
with you and Philip Carr Gomm at artoflivingwell.org.uk as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Have a beautiful rest of your night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Bye bye, everybody.